If you live in a wildfire-prone area, you should be ember prepared. Why should you prepare for embers? Because the fires that destroy most homes during wildfire are caused by pieces of burning material, embers, also known as firebrands, landing on something easily ignited near, on, or in the home. This presentation describes those places around your home that are vulnerable to embers and recommends actions to reduce the threat. During a wildfire, your home may be showered by thousands of embers. These embers can be lofted high into the air and rain down, driven by high winds and pelt the side of your home like hail during a storm, or carried by many tornado-like fire whirls. Similar to how fallen leaves in autumn or snow during winter tend to accumulate in certain spots on your property, embers can pile up on horizontal surfaces, such as roofs, decks, and flower beds, on or near the house. They can also become lodged in small gaps, cracks, and crevices in materials on or near your home. If embers land in something easy to ignite, a new fire can start. These little fires can grow into big fires and destroy homes. These photographs show the same location. Note the arrow pointing at the stair post. Embers landed in a small pile of pine needles on this porch and ignited the deck boards. The fire eventually became big enough to destroy this home. What would happen to your home if it were exposed to thousands of burning embers on a hot, windy afternoon? Would your home survive when the embers arrived? These video clips show examples of embers produced during wildfires.
But the winds have kind of been picking up in the last few minutes or so, and that's what crews here are worried about. They've been cutting down trees in this area, hoping it doesn't spread into downtown. Now, that's some of that video that we shot earlier. That's taken actually of Via de Santa Fe and Via de la Valle, where at least 3 homes were on fire. Now, these burning embers just filled the sky. It looked like a rainstorm of fire and ash. And firefighters say the big problem in that area are the palm trees because, they go up very quickly. The embers spread to other areas, and they say that's how this particular fire started, from flying embers nearby.
The previous clip was an example of embers being lofted into the air. These embers are wind-driven and traveling close to the ground. This trampoline was located next to a home threatened by Lake Tahoe's Angora fire. Notice the number of holes caused by embers landing on the trampoline and burning through the mat. This gives you an idea of how many burning embers were landing on or near the house as the wildfire approached. The following interview is with the owner of a home that barely survived the ember storm from Carson City's waterfall fire.
This homeowner knows too well about flying embers and how close he came to losing it all at the height of the waterfall blaze in Carson City.
We didn't actually have any flames touch the house whatsoever. There was a lot of heat in the area. We had a window explode from the heat, but no flames actually reached the house. It was strictly embers that were blown by the wind up against the house and trapped up against the house.
But you still could have lost the house were it not for some firefighters and, as you say, luck.
We were about as close to losing the house as you could ever lose it and not lose it. The house was technically on fire when the firemen saw the smoke and stuff, and if it was not for the firemen, my house would have gone down. There was no one around to save it.
Let's revisit several of the scenes from this interview. This was a flower bed covered in pine bark nugget mulch. Embers landed in the mulch and ignited it. Fortunately, the burning flower bed was separated from the house by a green irrigated lawn and sidewalk. These kept the house from catching fire. There were dried weeds next to the side of the house. Embers ignited the weeds, and flames were able to penetrate into the wall cavity at the bottom edge of the siding. Once they were inside the wall cavity, flames were able to get inside the interior of the house. Fortunately, firefighters cut out the burning siding and doused the flames before the fire could ignite combustible materials inside the home. The firewood stack had been located near the house. Firefighters quickly dismantled the stack by chucking the rounds as far as they could away from the home. Had the firewood stack remained intact, embers could have become lodged in it, ignited small debris within it, and ignited the whole stack. The burning firewood would have been difficult for firefighters to extinguish and could have led to the loss of the house. This side of the house was facing the oncoming fire front. Driven by high winds, embers hit the siding and piled up in the corner near the doorway. The pine bark nugget mulch in this plastic flower pot was ignited by embers. The burning mulch ignited the siding and melted the pot. Fortunately, firefighters were able to extinguish the flames. The homeowner said the wood trim and siding at the bottom of the door jamb was decayed. Decayed wood is easier to ignite and therefore much more vulnerable to embers than wood in good condition. Embers ignited this portion of the door jamb and eventually burned into the garage. Firefighters were able to extinguish the fire. Embers entered the crawl space through the foundation vent and started a fire. This homeowner was fortunate that firefighters were available to extinguish the ember-caused fires. But what would have happened if they were not there? Homeowners need to be proactive and eliminate the conditions that would allow embers to start small fires that could jeopardize their homes. This photograph was taken during a wildfire. Notice anything interesting? The adjacent forest trees are not burning. Only the house and several small fires in the pine needle litter. Burning embers produced by the wildfire landed on something that was easily ignited. A small fire started on, in, or near the home, and eventually the entire home became engulfed in flames. It was not due to a raging wall of flames burning through the treetops and coming into contact with the house. This is how most homes are destroyed by wildfire. Consequently, it is critical that homeowners living in wildfire-prone areas be ember prepared. What does being ember prepared mean? It means understanding where your home and property are vulnerable to embers and preparing them to resist ignition by embers. Where do the embers come from? Embers can be as small as a grain of sand or as big as a piece of plywood from a burning roof. Common plant materials that become embers during wildfire include pine cones, branches, and bark. Burning houses can also generate embers and hasten the spread of wildfire through a neighborhood. Common ember materials produced by a burning building include pieces of lumber and other combustible materials. Remember, if you have a wood shake or shingle roof, it will also produce a large number of embers when burning. Depending on fire intensity, wind speed, and the size of materials that are burning, embers can be carried a few feet to more than a mile ahead of the fire front. Consequently, even homes located blocks away from the actual wildfire are threatened. So, where is this house vulnerable? Experts have identified the areas around a home that are vulnerable to ember attack. These areas are presented in the following ember-aware checklist. There are 20 spots on or near your house that are susceptible to embers. We'll discuss each of these spots and offer suggestions to reduce the ember threat. The best predictor of which houses will survive a wildfire and which will be destroyed is roof type. Houses with untreated wood roofs are much more likely to be destroyed during a wildfire than those with fire-rated roofs. The only long-term solution to the untreated wood roof hazard is replacement with a fire-rated type. Fire-rated types include asphalt composition shingle, metal, and cement-based or clay tile. Contact your local fire marshal for advice and local roofing requirements. Roof openings at the edge or ridge of roof coverings, such as the open ends of barrel tiles, can trap leaves and pine needles and allow birds to enter and build nest. These materials are easily ignited by embers. Plug roof openings with a non-combustible bird stop material to minimize the accumulation of easily ignited materials. Bird stops will also reduce the likelihood of ember entry. routinely remove plant debris, such as pine needles, leaves, branches, and bark, from your roof, regardless of the type of roof material. Debris often accumulates at locations where the roof meets a vertical surface, such as a wall. If they're ignited by embers, will those adjacent surfaces be as fire-resistant as your roof? In this case, if the pine needles are ignited by embers, the wood shingle siding will be exposed to the flames. These shingles are much more vulnerable to fire than the Class A shingles used on this roof. Close operable skylights, such as the one shown here, if a wildfire is threatening. As is the case with windows, the most vulnerable skylight is the one that is open. Keep skylights free of pine needles, leaves, and other debris, and remove overhanging branches. If skylights are to be placed on steeply pitched roofs that face large amounts of nearby fuels, such as a mature pine tree or another house, consider using flat ones constructed of double pane glass, such as the one shown in the inset picture, where the outer pane is tempered glass. Install an approved spark arrestor on chimneys. It will prevent embers from escaping your fireplace and igniting your property or that of your neighbors. An open window can let embers enter the house. Make sure all windows are closed anytime a wildfire is threatening. Windows can be the weakest part of your house's exterior and can break during wildfire. If the glass falls out, embers can get into your house. Replace single-paned, non-tempered glass windows with multiple-paned, tempered glass types. Don't forget about windows in garage doors. The garage door windows at this house broke. Embers could have entered the garage and started a fire on the inside. The inset picture shows a double pane window where the exterior pane broke, but the interior pane stayed intact. In this case, a neighbor's house had ignited. The radiant heat from the burning house caused the outermost piece of glass to break. House vents are a major area of concern during an ember attack. In the background picture, embers were able to get into the house through an attic vent and ignite the inside of the house. The lower left inset picture is looking up at an enclosed or soffitted eave where embers were able to penetrate through the small louvered circle vents. The lower right picture is of a metal louver vent cover that allowed enough embers to enter the crawl space to cause ignition. At a minimum, cover attic, eave, and foundation vents with 1/8-inch wire mesh. New vent types are available that are designed to minimize both ember and flame entry, but they are more expensive than simple mesh screens. Make sure there are no easily ignited materials such as old magazines, letters, cardboard boxes, sawdust, or wood scraps in the attic or crawl space behind the vents. If wildfire is threatening and you have time, cover your vent openings with pre-cut plywood as shown in this picture. Another option is to cover vents with aluminum foil, folded several layers thick and stapled. Remember, the purpose is to stop embers. Remove the covering once the wildfire threat is passed. Rain gutters can catch embers during a wildfire. If they're filled with plant debris, such as pine needles and leaves, as shown in this picture, they can ignite and threaten exposed combustible materials, such as roof sheathing or fascia board located at the edge of the roof. In this case, if the plant debris in the rain gutter were to catch fire, the roof sheathing would be exposed to the flames. This roof would be vulnerable, even though it is covered with a fire-rated asphalt composition shingle roof. If they're filled with burning debris, Metal rain gutters tend to stay attached to the roof edge and threaten the roof for a longer time. Plastic rain gutters can melt and fall to the ground and threaten the house by igniting flowerbed vegetation and combustible siding. Even though this house was some distance from the actual wildfire, an ember landed in this gutter and started a fire. In this smoky video clip, embers have landed in the rain gutter of this house and ignited the plant debris contained there. Remove plant material from rain gutters before and during fire season on a routine basis. Consider using rain gutter covers to reduce but not eliminate maintenance. In the inset photograph, debris accumulated behind the rain gutter cover. The debris should be removed. Siding that has become warped may create openings and allow embers and flames to enter. Replace poor condition wood siding and trim. Fill gaps between siding and trim materials, such as those shown here, with a good quality caulk to prevent embers from lodging there. Embers can ignite wood piles, which can then burn intensely and threaten the home. Move wood piles and scrap lumber at least 30 feet from the house or other buildings during fire season. The dark spots on this deck chair pad are from embers. Luckily, they did not ignite the pad in the wicker chair. Place combustible patio furniture such as lounges, tables, and hammocks inside the house or garage if wildfire is threatening. If there's no time, throw the patio furniture away from the house. Decks are usually vulnerable to embers because of the condition of the deck boards, the presence of combustible debris on or near the deck, and by the steepness of land around the deck. In this photo, a firefighter noticed smoke from beneath the deck. He cut away the deck boards and extinguished the burning debris beneath the deck and likely saved this home. Keep your deck in good condition and replace any weathered or decayed materials. Remove plant debris from the gaps between deck boards, the gap between the deck and the house, and lying on top of the deck. In this video clip, embers have become lodged between the deck boards. If there's plant debris in the board gaps, embers can ignite the debris and possibly the deck boards. Remove plant debris, wood piles, and other easily ignited materials from under decks. Consider enclosing the open sides of the deck with siding materials or 1/8-inch wire mesh to reduce the accumulation of wind-blown debris and deter ember entry. If you use the underdeck area to store combustible materials, enclosing the open sides with a non-combustible or ignition-resistant material would reduce the vulnerability of the deck. If you enclose it with solid materials, make sure you adequately vent the enclosed space and take necessary precautions to prevent wood decay. If wildfire is threatening, remove combustible materials from the porch and deck and move them indoors. This includes newspapers, wicker baskets, doormats, and dried flower arrangements. If wildfire is threatening and there is time, remove combustible flower boxes from beneath windows and put them indoors or toss them away from the house. If the flower boxes are constructed of fire-resistant materials, such as metal or fire-retardant treated wood, do not allow dead plant material to accumulate in them, and do not use wood, bark, or rubber mulches in the boxes. Open eaves often have gaps between the wall and the joist blocking, roof sheathing, and elsewhere. Depending on construction design, these gaps could allow embers to get into the attic, the wall cavity, or ignite debris that accumulates in these spaces. If you have gaps, consider boxing in your eaves using sheathing such as plywood or fiber cement soffit material. Use tongue and groove or shiplap joints and avoid the use of butt joints. The potential for embers to threaten the under-eave portion of a home will depend on a number of factors, such as where the home is located, terrain, and wind conditions. In areas immediately adjacent to your home, replace wood, bark, and rubber mulches with non-combustible types. Remove plant debris, including dried grass and flowers, dead leaves and needles, and dead branches from flower beds and next to wooden fences. Replace evergreen shrubs with low-growing deciduous shrubs, flowers, and grass under irrigation. Ornamental juniper shrubs, as shown in this picture, are notorious for burning intensely once ignited and are not a good choice for planting near your home. The following video clip discusses this juniper fire.
Out my bedroom window, and the front bush was, I saw smoke coming from it, and I got a closer look, and there's a little bitty flame coming out of it, and by the time I got fully dressed to come out to see what I could do to help, the bush was just engulfed in flames. And by the time I grabbed the phone to call 911, the whole front of the building was spreading everywhere. It was crazy.
Investigators saw that the fire had erupted in the juniper bushes in the front next to apartment 9. Children had said they thought a man living in one of the apartments had flicked his cigarette into the bushes, but that was not immediate.
This video clip demonstrates the intensity at which a juniper can burn during a wildfire. An important contributor to a juniper's flammability is its tendency to accumulate dead leaves and branches inside the plant. Embers can fall through the upper shrub branches and land in a pocket of dead plant material. The dead material can ignite easily and burn rapidly. Wood, bark, and rubber mulches are also a concern. They're all combustible and can be ignited by embers. As previously stated, do not use these types of mulch within 5 feet of the home, and do not use in a widespread manner within 30 feet of the house. The mulch used in this landscape is shredded red cedar, also known as gorilla hair. As shown in this demonstration, shredded red cedar ignites easily and burns rapidly. If a window is open, embers can get inside and ignite a car's interior. If a wildfire is approaching, close your vehicle's windows and park it in the garage or away from the house. If a wildfire is threatening, make sure your garage door is closed. But even if they're closed, garage doors can be vulnerable to embers. If there are gaps between the door and the opening, embers could enter the garage and ignite combustible materials. Adjust garage doors to achieve as tight a fit as possible within the door frame. Consider using trim and weather stripping around the door opening to reduce the size of gaps. To check for gaps, close the garage door at night and turn on an interior light. Standing outside, look for light shining through. These are areas where embers could enter. Garbage cans often contain easily ignited materials. If they're anywhere near the house or other buildings, use metal garbage cans covered with tight-fitting lids. Move newspaper recycling bins indoors or away from the house. Another option is to locate garbage cans and recycling bins in a non-combustible enclosure. Fences made of combustible materials can ignite and carry the fire to the house. Fences constructed of smaller dimension wood, such as lattice, are more easily ignited than larger dimension wood. A wildfire ignited the backyard fence and threatened this home. Maintain wooden fences in good condition. Do not allow dead plant material to accumulate next to the fence. Create a non-combustible fence section or gate for at least 5 feet next to the house. If a wildfire threatens and there is a combustible gate next to the house, tie the gate open so it doesn't touch the house. There are 20 spots on or near your home that are vulnerable to embers. How will your home fare during a shower of wildfire embers? Will your home survive when the embers arrive? Take steps now to prepare your home for embers. For more information about reducing the wildfire threat, go to the following websites: livingwithfire.info, firecenter.berkeley.edu, or extension.org/surviving_wildfire.
And these experts are going to explain to you what they do briefly. We're going to open it up to many, many questions, we hope, to get everything answered. And just briefly, as an association, we're doing everything we can to help you remain safe and stay safe. But there are some limitations. We're not firefighters. We're not first responders. We don't go out there and put out flames. I don't think they appreciate that if we tried it. But we do everything we can. And this type of a meeting is the best thing we can do to share information. And it will be videoed. Leslie Knott is running a video right now. If you have a question, please say it loud. I'll try to repeat it so the experts can answer the question so that we do get it on the final video. So to start with, we're going to introduce the experts, and I'm not going to say all their names because I don't know them all. So we'll start from this side all the way over to this side. We spend about 2 or 3 minutes explaining where you're from, where you work, and what your role is in firefighting and fire prevention.
Good evening. My name is Walt Holloway. I'm the local division chief. I oversee Ramona, eastern part of the county, as well as Port La Cruz Conservation Camp. And I'm here to support my battalion chiefs in the question and answer session.
Hello, everybody. Bert Permensky, CAL FIRE, Ramona District Chief. So I work for the Ramona Fire Department as also CAL FIRE. And so right now I'm covering the Ramona area, and I oversee the 3 stations the Ramona Fire Department has, as well as the Ramona Fire Station at the east end of town, west end of town, at the base of Mount Woodson.
Good afternoon. My name is Saul Villagomez. I'm a CAL FIRE employee, and I'm working at the office of the Reno Municipal Water District. I am the local fire marshal. I work with Chief Kravinsky here. And part of my duties are the building, construction, new construction within Ramona, within its 75 square miles. Help to orchestrate that. Also, one of my other duties is to help coordinate some of the defensible space within Ramona. Trying to help and the citizens understand really what the defensible space means and how we need your help to partner with us for that safety. Chief Kravinsky is my partner. When he is not here, I help try and fill those shoes, but my portion of it, my element is the admin services within Ramona. I interface with Ramona Municipal Water District, and I'm a representative for the Water District to answer a few questions that we can hopefully enlighten the public.
Good evening, my name is Stasha Richardson, and I'm here with the San Diego County Office of Emergency Services. And the Office of Emergency Services is not as well known as the fire department or the sheriff's department. So very briefly, what we do is before a disaster, we help people and communities prepare and plan for disasters. During a disaster, we help coordinate. We operate the Emergency Operations Center in which we support all field activities. And after a disaster has subsided and the initial threat is gone, we help people and communities and agencies recover from whatever the impact of the specific disaster may be. We do work very closely with our law and fire partners, as well as outside agencies such as 211 San Diego and the Salvation Army and the American Red Cross for temporary evacuation points or shelter locations. And one other component of what we do during a disaster is alert and warning, or alert and notification. Some of you may have heard about Reverse 911 or Alert San Diego. That can be processed through our office, and we have access to that to send out messages to you in advance of a disaster, informing you what you should and should not do. We do have access to the AT&T database, which includes every landline in the county, whether your phone number is listed or unlisted in the phone book. We still have it. We just don't know that you're tied to it, but we know what address it's tied to. The one thing we do not have are cell phones. So I encourage all of you to register your cell phone, tie it to your home address. That way we can notify you, because I can't tell you that every disaster is going to be very convenient and you're going to be sitting at home on your couch waiting for that phone call. You might be at work, you might be out shopping, you might not be around, and you might want to know that to get home that you have pets or children or just priceless items at home that you want to get out. So we want to make sure that you get that notification, and you can also get the notification through a text message or an email, but we do need you to sign up, and it's a really simple website. It's alertsandiego.org. It takes about 20 seconds to sign up.
Can you repeat that again, please?
alertsandiego.org, and it's all one word, all pushed together. One thing I would like to let you know is that we are not the law enforcement, we are not fire officials, we are not the public safety experts out in the field, and we don't direct what they do or how they do it. They're the ones who are trained to do it. We support them in their activities and whatever their needs may be.
Good evening, I'm James Beauvais. I'm the lieutenant for the Ramona substation. I'm also a fire storm survivor. Both fires burned through my property, so pretty familiar with fire. I also worked those fires, both of them, and so I know a lot of times the folks see us and they kind of wonder what does the sheriff do in these disasters other than tell me I can't drive down that road, right? Well, we actually partner with CAL FIRE very closely. OES is a big part of our support structure. We set up a unified command with the fire department. I have liaisons that go with them, and we work very closely to make sure that we do our main job, which in the sheriff's department is protect life and property. That's what we do. So we work with our DOC and the OES. We actually also work with the Ramona Water District. They're part of our unified command structure. All our deputies in town, actually in the county now, are issued fire gear. They have full turnouts, and they kind of look like firemen when you see them, except they say sheriff on them, and they got a gun hanging off their hip. So our guys, we've really prepared over the last few years for fire. We're probably at our best preparedness level right now. Of course, we utilize 911, reverse 911 notifications when a fire is burning. So you might get a call that says, you know, hey, alert, there's a fire burning in your area. Not an evacuation notice at this time, just to let you know. And then we step that up to where, hey, there's a possible evacuation coming. And then at some point then, we actually coordinate the evacuation, and the fire guys tell us where the fire is burning, and then we need to evacuate. And when we do that, we use the reverse 911 system. I'm saying reverse 911 system, there's different names for it, but everybody knows what that means. You get a call letting you know where to go. We coordinate the safe zones, the evacuation centers, where to go, and then we conduct the evacuations through the routes that is deemed possible during the fire. And I get a lot of people ask me a lot of questions about evacuation routes. Many of you know there's really 4 primary ways out of Ramona, but all those can change depending on the facts of the fire. So there's 4 of them, you know where they are, but it's depending on where the fire is coming from, where it's burning is the routes that we're going to use. And that really depends on the facts right at the time when we're making those decisions. Of course, we work very closely with California Highway Patrol to close roads where we need to either evacuate. Once people are out, if they are evacuated, then we basically just do neighborhood security checks. We put our guys in the neighborhood and make sure nobody gets vandalized or burglarized while you're away from your home. As many of you are aware with probably last. We've actually stepped up a lot this year. We've already had several planning coordination meetings. We've had some tabletop exercise with CAL FIRE. We've done that with the Reno Water District as well. SDG&E was involved, CHP. So we've all sat down, many of us in this room, and we've had this conversation about the fire and this fire season. So I feel that we're at a good preparedness level. There's a lot of resources available for you about fire. I actually brought some of them. There's some handouts. Many of you might have seen these. They're not new. They're on the back table, and there's enough for everybody. You can grab one. But all these you can print these. You can download them from our website. If you go to sdsheriff.net, that's our main website. And then as you drill down into that website, you go to the Ramona substation, and in there's all sorts of resources for you about fire. Not only that, though, there's a lot of other things you can subscribe to get information about all emergencies in the county. The sheriff uses Nixle, we use Facebook, Twitter, and we all have accounts there, so you can actually sign up for those and get notifications. I'm signed up even for City of San Diego, so this thing never stops ringing. But it's a great way to get information about what's going on, and not necessarily about fire, just other emergency situations. And then, I don't know if a lot of you know, I don't remember if you mentioned it, but there's actually an app for that, for county emergencies, and if you go to readysandiego.org, you can download the app for your phone, and it gives you all kinds of resources, not just information, but it gives you maps and a lot of different links to things that you need during a time of emergency.
Could you repeat that again?
Sure. It's readysandiego.org. And it's self-explanatory. When you get on there, you can see it, and it has apps for iPhones and Android phones and all the other phones. And it's a great application. The Board of Supervisors are very pleased with it. I know Ron Roberts talks about it everywhere he goes. So it's a great resource for you. And all that, again, is in these handouts I brought in the back that you can get. And one of them is our evacuation route, so you can see that if you're not sure about that. Was there another question in the back, Mario? I wasn't sure. Okay, well, that's all I have. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Officer Jeff Christie. I'm here representing California Highway Patrol tonight. A lot of what the Lieutenant talked about is the same kind of things we do as well. Unfortunately, I'm usually the guy that's shutting down the roads and not letting you back in when you get back into your house. Like the Lieutenant was saying, we coordinate with the Sheriff's Department, CAL FIRE, SDG&E. Everybody needs to be coordinated with. We'll have a liaison representative for our agency, also at the command center, working on road closures, what needs to be open, what needs to be shut down. And a lot of people think that we just get in there and just shut everything down and that's it, and that's the end of it. Well, our directives, we're trying to get everything opened up as soon as possible, but what you guys have to understand, there's more than just opening up the road. There's a lot more that goes into it. And I've been up here since 2004. I currently am signed up into Ramona. I also live up here, work up here. Just like Lieutenant, the fire swept right in behind my house, and I was surprised it didn't go, but we learned a lot during the wishfire as far as evacuations and what worked, what didn't work. And anyway, I think we learned a lot, and I think it worked out pretty well. The tabletop exercises and stuff we've done. Hopefully, I can answer any questions as well.
Can you hear me? Okay, I'm Wes Lewis Jr. I'm acting Division Chief Fire Management Officer for the Palomar District of the Cleveland National Forest. I've been on the district here since 1979, so I've been here a little while and seen a lot of stuff go on in the past as far as fires go, and then working with CAL FIRE and all the other agencies. But I manage the fire management and aviation forces on the district here. That includes, I got 3 battalion chiefs that work under me, a helitac superintendent with a helicopter at the airport out here, a superintendent with the Palomar Hot Shot crew on the north side of the district, 9 fire engines out of 7 stations and 3 fire prevention officers, all in the district. And the Scantia district to the south pretty much has the same, other than no helicopter or no helitack crew. The Trabuco district to the north of us pretty much has the same amount of phones and people, minus the helicopter also.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Laura Ward with the Department of Animal Services for the County of San Diego. I'm one of 3 disaster coordinators for the department. We are the primary agency responsible for all animal evacuations in any disaster in the county. We work directly under the Sheriff's Department and listen to their directive when the need is necessary to evacuate animals. We also have a member at the Incident Command to help with communication and make sure things are flowing smoothly. We try to get the word out to the community that you should always include your animals in your disaster plan, your evacuation plan for your family. Have your animals as part of that plan. If you have livestock, please leave early. Have a place to take those livestock. If it does become a mandatory evacuation, then the department is responsible for having a place for you to take those animals, and we get that word out as soon as mandatory evacuation goes into effect, as quickly as possible, so that you would have a place to go. If it's a voluntary evacuation, then you do need to find a place to take your animals, and it's always best to have those plans coordinated ahead of time. Make sure you have a couple of different places in San Diego, depending on the location of the fire, where you can take them away from the threat of the fire. We are also responsible for any animals that are left behind. If you cannot get back or you have to leave animals behind, we need to know about that, because we can send officers in and check on your animals, feed, water, do what needs to be done to help care for those animals till you get back. It's real critical. That was real critical in the 2007. I worked both firestorms as well. I've been a disaster coordinator for about 15 years. We've done a lot of changes in our department as well, and we do a lot of training. We work hand in hand with the Humane Society, who's here, and we have a pretty good team of people to get the evacuations done if necessary.
I'm Lieutenant Melissa Jones with San Diego Humane Society. I lead their law enforcement department and a volunteer unit called the Animal Rescue Reserve. We do work alongside Department of Animal Services. Our focus is mainly large animals and livestock. We do a lot of training separately and together with Department of Animal Services. We opened last month, and again, like Laura said, we do encourage you to have a game plan for evacuating your animals sooner rather than later. Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Don Scott. I'm the Assistant Program Director with the Ramona Community Emergency Response Team. Community Emergency Response Team is part of FEMA. That actually, it falls under the direction of County Office of Emergency Services, as well as direction of the Ramona Fire Department. All of us are volunteer disaster service workers. Currently, we have 22 disaster service worker members in the Ramona area. All of us live here. We're trained in disaster services, disaster first aid, search and rescue, shelter operations to assist the Red Cross if needed, damage assessment and reporting to Ramona Fire, and the list continues. All of these volunteers are trained and certified by the County Office of Emergency Services. Our main focus is self-preparedness, which we ask of all of the community as well, family, neighborhood, and community safety and response. Just for your information, I'm hoping everyone can hear it, there's numerous documents and information resources available, just as Lieutenant Beauvais had mentioned, specific maps for evacuation sites, step-by-step procedures. You see there's a lot of small documents out there in the back that you can take tonight. But I wanted to introduce something that numerous members or groups, community-based groups in the public aren't aware of, although the info is there. We have a large document, and it's called the CPEP for short, Community Protection and Evacuation Plan. It's actually put together by all of the agencies, as you see here today, and through the template prescribed by the County Office of Emergency Services. This is available online. It's real easy to find. You would just go to San Diego County OES, or Office of Emergency Services, look for the button that says Communities, And you'll see each unincorporated community in San Diego County, for instance. We're in Ramona, or if any of you have come up here from another area, those other areas, Campo, Hamul, etc., are all on there. It's a very large document, so it's the easiest to find online and just review it like that instead of downloading or printing it. But the reason I'm bringing this up is the steps that are taking place in any type of disaster, even ones that we didn't mention other than fire, are all outlined in here, and it'll give you a sense of confidence that proper steps are being put in place to ensure the community's safety. Obviously, the online document is a public version. There are confidential sections that you'll find are left out or are taking place, are actually being taken place. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, without a mic, I'm Christy Manshoff with the Fire Safe Council in Ramona. I am not an expert. I work with these agencies and have for 10 years and helped to develop with Don the evacuation plan for Ramona, as well as some of the items on the back table, and information is kind of our specialization. We provide education, facilitate and encourage information exchanges, and we also do fuel reduction projects, and we've actually done a few out here in the estates, just individual properties, but we've done large ones as well. And again, we're not experts, so we depend on the expertise of the fire department to give us the guidance we need to get those done. We are a nonprofit, and we've been funded for grants 3 or 4 times now to do this work in the community. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, and I want to mention a special thank you to Christy, who helped to set this up. She organized all these fine people to come. It's encouraging to know that we have so many well-trained professional people to help, firefighters, police officers, deputies, and that's nice to know. Just briefly about what we're doing today. Mostly it's questions. It's up to you to ask questions, so ask away as many as you want. Everyone got a raffle ticket when you arrived, I hope. On the back table, we have a lot of items. There's probably 50 items back there. Hopefully you had a chance to look at them. Most of them are for disaster preparedness, safety, and if you have a raffle ticket, you might win something. And what we're going to do to save time, we're going to put your winning ticket on the item. So at the end of the meeting, walk back there, look at the items, look for your ticket number, and whatever your ticket is on, you can take. It's a few big items we mentioned earlier, but there's just too many for now. So with that, we're going to open it up to questions. And if you run out, I will. Yes, sir.
Talking about evacuation, why do we have to go down the hill? We have a lot of places here in Ramona that we can go to.
Who would like to answer that question?
I can speak to that a little bit, and then I hope, I'm sure Chief Kaminsky can speak to it as well. You're absolutely right, and not every situation requires an evacuation of the town of Ramona. In fact, that's the last thing personally that I want to do because, well, number one, it's almost impossible to do. But unfortunately, in 2007, there was such a set of circumstances that they felt that was the right thing to do. But there are many safe zones in Ramona, and there are places dedicated for safe zones and for evacuation areas, and it really depends on the set of circumstances. So it would depend on the fire whether or not we actually evacuated the town.
Let's look at one like from 2007. People were still going down the hill for 8 hours, and if that canyon there had burst into flame, we would have had a lot of roasted people. Again, why should we evacuate? We have all the golf courses here. We have the football fields. We have the well fields.
Yeah, it's hard to go back and relive those moments because, number one, I was involved in a lot of those decisions, and certainly you're right. And those are something that we take into consideration when we talk about it. An evacuation is a safe route for ingress and egress, because you're right. You don't want to create another issue and actually create victims when they shouldn't be. And we've learned a lot since 2007, and that's something that we talk about all the time when we do tabletop exercises. It's just when and how to do it if we need to make that decision.
Yeah, perhaps CAL FIRE can address that. When people don't evacuate, What does that do to your resources and what action do you take?
Okay, so I want to explain a couple of things just so that we have a sense of what's going on. So Ramona Fire Department covers 75 square miles and over 40,000 residents in Ramona. The population's over 40,000 people, okay? So we have, for CAL FIRE, we have 2 fire engines at the base of Mount Woodson, okay? We have 3 fire engines with Ramona Fire Department, so what are we up to? 5 fire engines now? And then U.S. Forest Service has 3 additional engines, which Chief Louis, how many of them are actually in Ramona today because of the fire in Riverside? 1 fire engine, and actually at the base of Mount Woodson, there's 1 engine there as well. So we're down to 5 engines for 40,000 people, 75 square miles, okay? So CAL FIRE's primary purpose is to contain fires in 10 acres or less, okay? 10 acres or less. 95% of the time we're successful, okay? It's the other 5% we're unsuccessful. When winds are easterly at gusts of 30 to 50 miles an hour, okay? So when we take a look back at, I believe it's the Cedar Fire, what had happened was it wasn't a coordinated effort. I'm going to be honest with you right now, okay? It took us by surprise, okay? The fire moved faster than we anticipated. We didn't communicate with County OES, American Red Cross, our partners for San Diego Sheriff's Office and CHP. What we've learned since then is we're actually training our incident commanders to put a representative from Sheriff's Office in the front seat with the incident commander so that we have real-time exchange and information. So that way we don't have to go around and hunt for the sheriff officer. He's sitting right next to us, he's got a radio in his hand, and whatever we tell him, he can communicate, okay? We've also met with American Red Cross and County OES and designated areas that we felt were safe. Now, could you imagine, and what had happened was somebody had misinformed the public and the community and said, go to the high school, okay? That's not right. So everybody showed up at the high school. The high school wasn't prepared for that. They weren't warned. No one knew what was going on. We couldn't get equipment up there. If we had put 40,000 people in that high school, do you think we could get all 40,000 in there, sleep them, feed them? Could we get food up here to them? Those are some of the logistical concerns we have. So we looked at that. We've identified areas. The Ramona Outdoor Community Center is a good place to be, except for there's grass all around it. And we only have 5 fire engines to protect those people. So we take into consider some of those things. Shelter in place. I don't know if you guys know of the Harris fire, where the gentleman decided to stay and save his home, and he lost his life for it, right? So those are some of the considerations we take into account before we decide what we're going to do and what we're not going to do.
Well, but major fires, you're going to be bringing other fire units in. And there's a lot of bulldozer operators around this town that really know how to handle the dozers. So that's a big asset that you simply stepped over.
So we utilize the bulldozers when we can. We have a emergency need hiring equipment list that we utilize for those bulldozers so that we can use them in the time of need.
Thank you. Yeah, we know it's not an easy job.
Well, I'm still trying to find out why we have to go out of town. You say, well, you don't have enough equipment. Major fires will bring a lot of equipment in. You know, it's not 8 or 9 or 10 trucks. It's 40, 50, 100 trucks.
Okay,
we saw that in the Cedar Fire, we saw that in the Witch Fire.
In the Witch Fire, we lost water to the community, and we had a water shortage and a water crisis because it could be contaminated water. So there's a lot of things that take into account, and we've met and decided what would be the best course of action to take.
But they have changed the water situation now, I understand.
We are...
Let's get on to some more questions. There after the last fire, I looked at my property, I found a hammer. There's a red hammer with a red handle. I looked at it, it said Modesto Fire Department. So someone from Modesto is down here in Ramona fighting a fire on my property, so everyone works together in the state, I'm sure. Yes, sir.
Yeah, when we came in here, you had on the screen the Be Ember Prepared, and I took a photograph of the house across the street from where we live on Schwarzenegger Road. It has a cedar shingles. I know I talked to the Ramona Water District and their fire people about it, and they tell me there's nothing they can do about that roof. It's definitely a fire hazard. I know if I had weeds around, I could get weed abatement, they could get me on that. But they can't do anything about this. This is definitely a fire hazard. These shingles, about 15% of them have already blown off. The roof leaks. The inside of this place has been abandoned for 2 or 3 years. It has an abandoned car in the driveway. I don't know who's responsible for this.
So the question is, what about embers in homes with wood shingle roofs? And Sal and I have been to that residence a dozen times, worked with the county. We think it might be going through foreclosure, is that correct? So that's good news. But that's a challenge. Maybe Sal can address some of the construction issues that we have to deal with existing homes.
Okay, well, thank you. Yes, sir? Okay, so thank you for bringing that information up. As we know, we've had conversations with Mr. Hager regarding this property. So the property we're speaking about is an abandoned structure. It's been in and out of possible foreclosures for the last couple of years. So it is a building issue. If your home, and I'll use this gentleman right here in the front row, if I came to you, sir, and said, your home, your roof, we want you to change your roof from those wood shingles to a composite or some sort of a ceramic. You as the owner, whether you live there or not, what would you tell me? What would your questions be to me? Okay. So when it comes to those issues, yes, we are very, it's on our radar. If the house itself was, a homeowner was living there, we can make contact with that homeowner. Mr. Medler and myself have done quite a bit of homework on that, and we've taken it to county level, county code enforcement, under the California Fire Code, which has to do with building construction, so new homes. We can go ahead and we can allow them to put different types of material on that. Once you, as a homeowner, and myself, once we become and we take that homeowner, that process is done. So when we come back to you and say, you know what, we don't like the color of your home, or we don't like the roof, the color, the type of roof that you have, that's one thing. Now, we've explored this and we've had a lot of conversation with Mr. Hager. We've taken it to the next level, and that is county code enforcement. County code enforcement has taken that, they've taken the next step and taken that to their legal counsel. They can put a lien on the property, so they can do that. Now, we as taxpayers, are we going to have to pay for that lien? Where's that money going to come from? Do we arbitrarily just take that roof off and put another roof on because we like it? So there are certain steps that we have to go through. And believe me, this home here is an eyesore for the community. We understand that. The house itself is boarded up or closed, to the best of my knowledge. There are folks that are going in and out of the structure, so the structure itself sits abandoned. We are working closely with code enforcement, working closely with the estates here to find the owner of that property. But if the owner decides to, like they are now, they've been dodging us now for a year. The house has been in and out of foreclosure for a year. So therefore, we're doing our best. It does not fall under the California Fire Code, which is what we enforce. It falls under the building code. So therefore, I'm not stepping back and saying we have nothing to do with it, but we are working close with those folks. And the last information that we have is that home is going to the auction block. I believe it's this month in July, and we really hope to be there at that time to orchestrate something either with that potential new owner and to allow them to know that their home is in a disarray. We hope to partner with them, the building folks themselves. We have a concern, but it's not within our code enforcement. Does that kind of make sense? It's a really, really tough thing. Mr. Hager talked about it being a fire hazard. Those shingles, when they're made, they're treated, and because it's old, there's a certain amount of instead of 100% being treated fire retardant, that lessens and lessens and lessens. The house, yes, like a lot of homes here in foreclosure, are having issues. We're doing our best to work through that process, but we just cannot just go there and have it done because we don't have the juice to do it, and it's out of our California Fire Code. So we're relying on the county, and we're doing our best to, if I'm not mistaken, to find the folks responsible and try and make a difference. I wouldn't want to live beside it, and I'm really sorry that you and your neighbors are living beside that. We're doing everything we can to move forward. It's a tough, between a rock and a hard spot.
Yeah, the recession has been a challenge. San Diego Country Estates has about 3,000 single-family homes. During the worst of the recession, we had about a dozen that were just neglected. The owners left, the banks wouldn't take them. Out of those dozen, there were 6 with grass this tall, weeds and dead trees. And the association last year has decided to go into some of these homes, and we will mow it and get rid of the weeds, and then send the bill to the homeowner who's no longer there. But we are taking efforts to clean up the very worst of them. The good news is, in the last year, out of those dozen homes, I think at least 10 of them have sold, they're being rehabbed, and there are new owners in. So it is getting better. Another question. Yes, sir.
I see a lot of familiar faces, so the great news is a lot of people were here in 2003 and 2007. It seems like there was a lot that was learned between 2003 and 2007. I was wondering if Gail could share kind of one thing that they learned that's different, maybe that you picked up from your tabletops, or what you do different now that you wouldn't have than you did in 2007.
Okay, what did we learn between 2003 and 2007 from the other fires? And perhaps we can talk about the animals, because that's a big issue in the country estates. Have you changed your policies or procedures?
We haven't necessarily changed our policy and procedures. What we've done is a lot of training, a lot of coordination of manpower, opened up our communication systems better, and utilize our pool of volunteers that do the training alongside us. So they're volunteers that we're familiar with and know that they're qualified to be able to help all of our officers do these evacuations. The significant difference between 2003 and 2007 is we did a lot of community education. We went out to the communities, we educated people on being prepared and to take their animals with them, and we saw a huge difference. In 2003, we evacuated over 3,000 head of livestock. In 2007, less than 1,400. Everyone else got out on their own. And that's a huge difference as far as manpower for us. The other big difference was in 2007, unfortunately, those animals that were left behind for a very long time, and so we had to reorganize our manpower to go and feed and water those animals. So we did that. We hit over 1,000 homes in this community over about a 10-day period of time, and we would feed these animals and water them enough for 48 hours, and then we would rotate and go back. We had a regular checkoff list that we did, and the manpower that was familiar with this area, and along with the Humane Society, we coordinated the care and the feeding of all those animals, not only in this community, but other communities in San Diego. The other difference as well is we participate in a lot of these tabletops with the other agencies. We open up that communication and really have a relationship so that when it does come to the time and need, we're already familiar with how everybody works, and it makes it easier for us to work together.
Me, like many of you here, tried to evacuate, and we're on the road for an hour and a half and went nowhere. What are we doing with our roads to improve the evacuation in the event of a fire?
Well, I know like I said, during the table exercise, I wasn't actually present at those. My sergeant was at those, but I know from what everybody was pretty much here up in the hill. Everybody was already here at their home. I couldn't imagine what more of a nightmare it would have been if it would have happened during a weekday at that same time, where everybody's down off the hill at their job, trying to get up here to get to their kids, household goods, property, and then trying to turn around and get back out, I think that would have, I think it would have been way worse than it ended up being. I'm sorry, go ahead. Just one other thing that, again, I was one of the first officers at the scene when that thing started, up just east of Old Julian Highway, and I could not believe how quickly that thing burned. I know your concern was, the evacuation and why we had to get everybody out. I can tell you right there, I'm watching this fire, and this thing is burning. I mean, I couldn't imagine, I couldn't believe how quickly this thing was burning with the fire, or the winds that we had at that time. And it was creating its own wind and everything, and I'm not speaking of your job, but, I mean, the calls were made. This thing was moving so fast and so quickly, and we had to make a decision. I'm surprised we didn't lose. I think we're going to lose a couple lives during that fire. I'm just shocked that we didn't lose more, but.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of brush in town.
I agree, but, I'm just saying, it wouldn't take much, because if you get people trapped in, a certain area, then, then you're going to have a lot more problems. Thank God we still had 78, we still had some of the other evacuation points, but as Lieutenant was saying, we only have 4 basic points out of town.
I believe 78 was closed.
And, well, eventually it was later on, once it got down to that far. But initially we had it opened up, but once it kind of got down to that far, towards the Animal Park, we had to shut it down. There was no way around it.
We know that, yeah.
And thank God, I guess speaking of that too, Caltrans has done a lot of work too, that I'm not sure if you guys are aware of, especially like on 78, when it swept through there, all that guardrail, because you have that whole side down to the canyon, all that guardrail used to have the wood posts, and that's all been replaced now with steel posts, fire resistant stuff. And now it's one of the problems we had during the witch fire was all that was gone. There was no protection for the public, the motoring public, to get up and down the highway. So, Caltrans has done a lot of work, from the state side to protect that. So now, God forbid that happens again, we should hopefully have it opened up a lot easier, a lot quicker too. So, did that answer your question?
Did you want to make a comment about the CERT team and what you're doing?
Well, actually, not as much with the CERT team, but falling back on this community protection and evacuation plan. I happen to be very familiar with that and the specific topic, if we're talking the 2007 fire, for instance, and I'm very familiar with the after action report that was written on the steps that took place and the corrective actions that are hoped to be implemented after that. And I know that we had some meetings and another presentation that the county had showed the reverse 911, or at least the notification system that they utilize to alert the community of evacuations, and their intention is, and I'll throw it over to Stasha next, but their intention is to be able to more sectionalize or systematically in a specific order, depending on the direction of travel of the fire or the level of danger most quickly approaching to a certain area, that way notify this area. We're evacuating this area here. Instead of a more broad approach that would notify numerous areas, some which may not need as immediate evacuation timing, and that would help to at least assist in the flow, depending on the priority. Stasha, could you touch on that?
You're absolutely right, Don. And ideally, if we could have a phased evacuation approach where we notify the people who are in the most imminent threat first, let them get out, then we go to the next section, then we go to the next section. That's a much more ideal situation. I think everyone can agree. But one thing I want to make sure that's very clear is the first goal and objective. I think every agency up here, and if I misspeak, agency, please correct me. The first goal is to make sure that lives are not lost. Lives are the most important. And so if with the erratic fire behavior, we don't know where it's going, and if they order the evacuation of more than, looking back on hindsight, we realize, okay, we might not have needed to do that. We'd rather err on the side of caution than lose residents in Ramona, or any community for that matter. But I also am a resident of Ramona, so I do care about the community here. Another point I'd like to make is that we don't live on the East Coast with hurricanes that we sit on, watch on the National Weather Service for a week before it hits us. We live in San Diego County where we have little or no notice events. So you need to be prepared prior to a disaster happening, because when you get that notice, as much as I said we'd love to do that phased approach, we might not be able to. We might just say, everybody here, you need to evacuate. You need to be able to evacuate as soon as possible. One thing Don mentioned was cell phones. In 2007, we did not have access to cell phones. And quite honestly, still, we do not have the cell phone databases from AT&T and Sprint or whoever they all are. They won't give those to us. That is why when I mentioned earlier that we need you to register your cell phones, we've asked you to do that. So far, we have about 190,000 people that have registered cell phones, which is great. But if you look at the population throughout the county of 3.3 million, it's probably not as good as we wish it would be. So we do have that capacity now to register cell phones for text messages as well as emails, which we didn't have in the past. We also didn't have what we call accessible Alert San Diego, which is able to communicate with those that have communication barriers such as they might be blind or deaf. We are now able to reach out to them as well.
Who is responsible for getting the defensible space behind Verona Mesa Road?
Correct.
That's the question.
So who is that property owner?
It was owned by a family in Colorado. It's now owned by people in Wilshire Boulevard in LA.
So
the information was sent to you on 3 occasions.
whose responsibility did you say that was? The county's at one point in time?
The county, prompted by Fire Marshal McVeigh, issued something called a non-compliant county code enforcement, and the county contacted.
Where do I go? Who do I call? In the association, you call us. We can send them a letter, but you don't live in the association. What would we do about it? I'd like to take that question.
And where is that property located now?
It's located on Vista Ramona Road.
In Vista Ramona? Okay. So let me understand it one more time. So it is trying to keep that area lush and having issues with that? Is that how I understand?
Well, due to the cost of water, it's not possible to keep it lush.
Yes, it's very difficult. We know that the cost of water, electricity, is rising. Very difficult if you are on the domestic water side of it. With that, we do have, and I brought some handouts also, that we are trying to, when we talk about educating the public, yes, that becomes a problem. There are certain types of native plants and vegetation that can be planted, of course, that are drought resistant, things that will help you, the homeowner, cut down on costs also, and still give you a sense of defensible space. With your area, if you're talking about your specific area, then I really think that a site visit is necessary just to maybe help you or educate you, or at least put you in the right direction. The county has numerous elements for types of succulents that you can plant. Along with that, there are a few programs that you can also, rebates and things that they are giving us. There's a short window for those, but maybe we also can meet, at least get your address, and if you'd like for us to come out and set up, maybe give you a site visit. I don't know if you're talking about wide or high water costs, maybe that could be looked at also. Do you have a leak or things like that? Those are things that maybe we could help you with.
Yeah, so along with Inspector and I have been on lots of properties for that very purpose, and he'll go out and evaluate. Sometimes he sends them a notice, sometimes we send them a notice. So how would they contact you if they wanted you to evaluate a neighbor's property? What's the best way?
So the best way is calling right to the Reno Municipal Water District, and that phone number is, that's where my office is at, 789-1330. And you can speak to the attendant, the front desk. They will get you, pencil you in a time when we can come out and meet with you. There are two of us,
Under you, Saul?
yes, Saul, yes, Saul or Saul? Well, actually Saul. There's another Saul that's also in code enforcement, but my name is Saul.
And if you need the number, look at your water bill. And very responsibly, always connect me directly.
I don't handle that.
Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Could the panel please address shelter in place?
Is there a penalty for sheltering in place? We'd like to talk about sheltering in place. That means that you don't leave and you figure your house is safe enough and you stay there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so, you know, this is a topic that keeps coming up. You know, I'm reminded of the, I think it was the Black Saturday fire in Australia, where they had lots of those communities that were shelter in place, and a lot of those homes burned. Okay, I'm not the person who goes out there and decides whether you can shelter in place or not. There's rules and codes. They're designed for that. We only have one community in San Diego County, and if I'm not mistaken, it's in San Marcos. And they actually followed all the guidelines and made their community a shelter-in-place community. We do not have that in Ramona. And with the vegetation and the fire run simulator process, they actually, I can tell you, we run a computer-based program called Behave, and it models fire activity off of weather element such as wind, temperature, fuel moisture, those things. And what they recommend, just off of basic fact for us as a firefighter, is to have, if we're going to shelter ourselves in an area, that we have to have 4 times the expected flame length. So if the flame length is 4 feet, I'm sorry, 4 times. If it's 10 feet, we need to have 40 feet. My math is correct. Around us. Okay, so 10-foot flame length, 40 feet in all directions. Okay, so it's kind of hard to come up with that clearance around your property, but basically we don't have that. We don't go by those guidelines. The County of San Diego didn't adopt any of that. The only one that I know of, the community that's gone through that process, is in San Marcos, the community of San Marcos.
I'd like to add to that a little bit. So when we call you, or a deputy knocks on your door and we say it's mandatory evacuation, what that really means to you is we're telling you your life and property is in imminent danger. You're in danger of death and losing your property. And we want to let you know that because we're in the business to save your life and property. So if you make the decision to stay in your house, you can do that. We can't force anybody to evacuate. You can do that. You can stay in your house, but you roll the dice on is it survivable? Now, the only caveat I want to tell you to that is if you have children, if you have people under 18, or adults that are under a conservatorship or can't fend for themselves, then we may have to take action. We can't allow children to stand in the face of imminent death. So there are provisions where we can take children out of a home under those conditions. So just realize that when we're telling you to evacuate, we're letting you know that the likelihood of you being killed or your home lost is very high, and that's what you need to make your decision on. And obviously, if there's children, then we take other steps.
A good example of what the lieutenant's talking about is they have limited resources. They've got all kinds of resources, but it has some limit. When the evacuation process is taking place, the people that wish not to leave, at that time really are, in some cases, convinced that they need to stay, for whatever their reason may be. I'll give you an example. We're volunteer disaster service workers. We're not highway patrol or sheriff's department. However, in a recent fire, there was a fire on Mount Woodson. We had Santa Ana conditions coming from the northeast, blowing that fire toward the ocean. What do you know? Later on in the day, what took place? We had a wind shift. All of a sudden, we had an onshore flow. We still had a fire burning, and guess what happened? The fire started coming back over Mount Woodson, but all those members that didn't want to evacuate were still in their homes in these little roads, and we had all the law enforcement, fire officials, and everyone else doing the job there, moving along step by step as the fire progressed. We had to send special teams out to notify everybody again, re-evacuate. That was a risk. It was an unnecessary risk, but we did that, and that was maybe a chance that might not happen next time. There's not always people that can come back after the evacuees neglected to do what they needed to do. When that fire changes conditions, that's when you're going to get caught with your, you know, with their guards on. So there's an exact situation that took place where people didn't evacuate, and the fire switched in the direction.
Who's had their hand up for a long time that I missed?
She has.
Did you get your question answered?
Hi.
Did you get your question answered, sir? No. Go ahead.
I have a question about on evacuation. Oh, I'm sorry, was someone else?
Go ahead on evacuations.
If you do not drive due to medical conditions and you have no way to evacuate, is there an agency that you can call?
That's a very good question. If you do not drive, or if you have a medical condition, or if you know someone that's housebound, how do they get out in case of a fire? We have an answer over here.
There are a lot of different resources for that. One I will mention is, thank you. One of the many resources that may be able to help in that situation is a program called YANA. I believe it's still administered by the sheriffs. Basically, it is a support organization for exactly those kind of people that have various issues. I believe health and other issues.
Information as to what is happening with the specific disaster, what areas are evacuated, where the shelters are located, items of that sort. But you can also contact them and let them know that there is somebody who needs transportation, and we can, even if they're in a wheelchair, we can get a paratransit bus and pick them up and take them to a safe location.
What is 211 San Diego in real life?
Just 211.
From any phone, any cell phone, landline, it's a free call.
211 San Diego.
211. The actual numbers is not one of those. Exactly. Yes, ma'am.
Me? Oh, thank you. I've got two comments to make. One, I was going to ask the fire professionals to speak to the latest standards for fire protection for our homes. As homeowners, I think we have a concern about that. But that might be a wider topic, and I would suggest that perhaps we consider having a workshop, judging by the number of people who are here tonight that might benefit from knowing about spark arresters and defensible space and that kind of information. What's the latest on the market and what can you do yourself? That was one. Number two, I would like to invite Don Scott from the CERT team, and I admit I'm a client. I'm a CERT team member too. Could you please speak to the new trailer that we have at the station that San Diego County Estate wants?
You're talking about as far as having resources
yes,
available?
Resources coming online.
Okay, so I guess this is basically this is just an FYI for letting people know. There are resources for all of these issues that you guys keep bringing up as far as sheltering, evacuation, disaster services, helping with the YANA program, various topics like that. There's actually Red Cross has staged some emergency shelter equipment in our Ramona immediate area that we have access to assist the Red Cross. We also have emergency supplies at various fire stations, rescue vehicles, command center, etc. But we also are going to be bringing on another trailer in the community estates here, the San Diego Country Estates. That's going to be stationed over at Fire Station 81. What this basically is it's a trailer with emergency gear such as search and rescue stuff, lights and fire suppression, shovels, the whole thing, disaster first aid, communication system. We have the ability to communicate with the fire department. We're online with them. We also have equipment that's been provided by the County Office of Emergency Service to supplement, you know, the effectiveness of these different agencies by communicating with us as well. Is that what you were talking about, Shelley?
Yes, I'm just trying to let people know that the trailer will be coming online soon, that we have grants available that are being funded into the preparation, and that it will be an added resource for this particular
And that's since you brought up the word grants, and I'm hoping that's not off, this is not off topic. Believe it or not, a lot of this equipment that we're using in a disaster, you hardly ever see till all of a sudden we have a fire or we get activated or placed on alert. But if any company or individuals or anyone at all has the interest in assisting, maybe you can't in a physical way, if you're interested in assisting the municipal water district, the community emergency response team, and the fire and all that, you can just go right to cert@rmwd.org. You can send an email if you have any questions or any of that. Once again, that's cert, C-E-R-T, @rmwd.org. And we have a way to listen to your questions and process that either through the fire department or a donation process. I hope that touched on your topic.
And on the back table, there's a list of phone numbers and contacts. We're going to copy all this information on our website, sdcba.net, San Diego Country Estates. We're going to have the video. And to answer the question about what to do with your house, the Ember video, which you could not watch tonight, is an outstanding video that shows you what happens when the fire comes. You might not have a fire next to your house, it might not be in the next block, it might be on the next hill, and suddenly all these embers rain down on your house, and if you don't have it protected, they can go inside and light a fire. So I would suggest you go online. If you can't find it on our website, it's called Be Ember Aware. Just look it up on the internet. But rather than go into all the details, I think that would be the best way. Of course, Sal is upgrading the fire codes all the time. If you build a new house, it's much more restricted. Another question? Yes, sir.
Along the more practical aspects, I've been away for 10 years in Florida. I went through one hurricane. I was astonished how often, when the windows blew out, that was the end of the house. The roof would go off. And apparently, I've been watching backcountry fire safety films, and there's an amazing corollary what happens in a forest over the hurricane. If thermal shock breaks the glass in your house, their embers are in, the house is gone. Now, in Florida, they have a very practical, and they have a week to prepare because there's this constant drumbeat from the news stations. It's coming. It's coming. So everyone goes to the hardware store, gets 5/8 inch thick plywood. Not ½ inch. It has to be 5/8. Cut it to shape for every window. Wood putty, stucco is cheap. They just sink those screws right through whatever the covering of the house is. Has anyone done any testing with drywall or concrete wall over, I don't know the correct term, but you've seen it.
That's a very good question.
That you use it to line a shower, cutting those to shape, putting them over a window, and see if that protects the glass from thermal shock.
Good question. What happens to our windows when the fire comes? I know they're upgrading the codes for that. And is it practical to have fireproof shutters or, like you said, concrete siding available to put over your windows? What have you seen when the fire comes?
Okay, so when it comes to the different properties of what you're speaking about, concrete, plywood, yes, all those have a certain type of fire rating. Now, what we are trying to educate and trying to get the information out there is, if fire, we know, is very fluid, and we've heard here that wind changes, the type of topography when the wind or it comes over certain types of areas within the estates or generally, that fire can shift from one direction to the other. So we talked about, and I'll just touch base a little bit on this. We talked about if in fact we feel collaboratively that the fire is going in a particular direction, then we are going to help together jointly to orchestrate an evacuation. Now let's say the fire, and we've seen this time after time, the fire is very, very fast moving. And if you are caught in your home, then the best thing we advocate is closing all your doors, windows, turning off your heating and or air conditioning, getting low to the ground within the structure. So once everything is closed and the fire burns past or over your home, then, and this is because you can't get out, there's not enough time to get out, your home is rated as a certain fire rating. Once the fire blows past, and the chief mentioned that we cannot be at every home within Ramona with present staffing, and even large cities. We know that there are studies that are out there when it talks about the types of plywood and types of construction and things like that. You can do your best to research that. Underwriters Laboratory does a lot of that research, and they will put their stamp on a certain type of plywood and or wallboard and or drywall that holds a fire rating. We're just asking you to be prepared to expect, say the unexpected, what can happen by being prepared and knowing, getting on certain sites, CAL FIRE sites, Twitter sites, county sites. There's so much information out there. We offer, to take for instance, a defensible space brochure that you find on, as soon as you click in defensible space or fire protection or whatever on your computer, there's so much information. Be aware of that. Use that information to be able to survive that. There's a lot of folks that have been caught. We talked about early evacuation. The sheriff comes knocking on your door. Law enforcement says it's time to evacuate. It's because we feel that your life is threatened. So, your choice. We know that. Sheriff talked about it. Your choice. Here's the problem. Once we get past that point and the fire comes in, you say, okay, at the last minute, I'm going to watch the fire. If it comes over the hill, then we're out of here, but we're not going to evacuate. So, wind change, we know smoke will now start, it'll either go up or go down, depending on the time of day. Pretty soon it starts getting smoky. And you're like, you know what, I waited too long, I got to get out of here. So now, when you try and leave, you can't see. With that said, you could essentially drive off the roadway. You could get to a certain point, you stop. Other folks now are trying to get out. You're causing a much bigger issue. Now, we're putting it back on you. You know the areas that you live in. You know where we live here in Ramona, in San Diego County, California for the most part. So we talk about being prepared, but don't wait for the last minute. Please get out there when you can, but be prepared. If you can't, know what to do. Give yourself a defensible space, get on the internet, take a look and see what you can do to harden your home.
Having gone through a hurricane, I don't recommend anyone to shelter in place, having gone through it. I mean, even if your house doesn't burn down, the trauma you're going to go through when you watch a rain of fire blowing horizontally across your windows, you're going to relive that for years to come, I think. So I was just suggesting the fire board might be a good way to help protect the house before you leave.
You can buy metal storm windows that come down, so pay the money, but that's very expensive.
Well, this is why I recommend this, because this is a very cheap way. Not everyone can afford a $10,000 investment.
Yes, another question back there in the green?
Yes, a couple questions. One is, has the water district addressed the issue that we ran out of water, or the water was turned off during the last fire? And then also I know SDG&E has talked about turning off the power when they see different dangers coming through. And so the people that have wells, if the power's off and they can't use the water from their wells, and then if the water's gone, from the city too, how's that being addressed?
Two questions. One is the water district, the other is about SDG&E. We have Sal, who is going to represent the water district tonight, is that correct?
I'll do my best.
SDG&E, I don't think we have anybody. Do we have anyone here that can talk to SDG&E? Let's talk about the water district. What are they going to do different this time?
So I believe I heard everything that you said. Now, I'm going to err on the side of caution. I have 32 years within the fire service, a lot of air horns and a lot of sirens. So if I don't get it exactly right, let me know, because I didn't hear quite everything you had to say. So here it is. So the district, the water district, we know, and we're just laying it out there, we know that there, in the past, there have been issues with water in Ramona. And so everybody knows, water, we live on an island. Ramona's on an island. Where does that water come from? Comes from down below. It gets pumped up through Poway, up to the Poway pump station, and then gets either gravity fed or pumped throughout different areas of Ramona. Is there anybody that doesn't understand that? So let's go to the next point. Next point is, in the past, that area that the pump station is at, it had vegetation around it. They had the electric lines that came in were smaller and older electric lines. Those electric lines were on top of, for the most part, on top of wood poles. So the district, seeing this and seeing and experiencing what has happened in the past, 2003 and 2007, we had some issues with water, they partnered with SDG&E. We need to harden that electricity coming up. So here's what was done. One, those poles, the wooden poles, were changed out. They are now steel poles, so that's a plus. With that, they brought in different types of cable for electricity to that Poway pump station. They've increased some vegetation clearance, because we know that that right there is the hub, being able to pump water up. Now, with that said, we know here in San Diego County that we have times where electricity gets there's an interruption in service, okay? If there's an interruption in service, we can't pump water up the hill. So now, we've gone to the next step. Now, we're going to, the district has made advances. They have purchased natural gas pumps, so they will not rely on the electricity. So we're talking about redundancy. So that pump will go in, it'll be serviced by natural gas. Natural gas, for the most part, there's a lot of data out there, and natural gas has not gone down. Electricity, there's more times electricity, the service will go down versus natural gas. So they can power those pumps with natural gas. And if for whatever reason, as a primary, if for whatever reason something happens, they will rely on electricity. So the district's actually hardened that. They've done a great job because, face it, no water, we have issues with Reno. Partnered with, same thing, SDG&E, moved those generators into place. And if there was a problem with electricity, those generators can be fired up. And once again, redundancy, you can push water out throughout the areas of Ramona.
Great.
Okay, so they've done some great things, and we're hoping really have a really good feel about this. The redundancy is huge, and we know who here was stuck outside of Ramona. You couldn't come in because of no water back in 2003 and 2007. Is anybody here? Show of hands. Okay, so it happens. We're just talking about hardening the facilities. The district has done a lot to help harden that, while, of course, we know rates go up for utilities, electricity and all that. Doing their best to help us survive on this island.
Another question here?
Yeah, you know, I think that the problem that I have, and maybe some people have, is a matter of trust here. Because in 2007, the story that we got in the news and how bad it was up here, and the reality of those people who stayed here and did save their houses because they were able to put the fire out on the embers. Because with your own admission, you don't have enough people to protect our property. We know that through emergency services. And the sheriff doesn't either. But it seems like the emphasis is getting us out of here instead of teaching us or helping us protect our own property. When SDG&E turns off the water, you can't put the embers out that are around our house. And when I heard some of the old timers talking about fires, and the fires are not new in Ramona, what's new is that we're scooted out of town. Whereas everybody before used to fight the things together. So I think there would be nice if there would be more of an effort to show us those who can stay or would wish to stay to learn how to do it properly, as opposed to just getting a call and saying get out because we want you out of the way, knowing full well that you don't have the resources to take care of it too. So we'd like to help, but I think, at least I feel, that you would rather get me out of here with no guarantee that my property is going to be taken care of, because you can't guarantee. You don't protect an individual, you protect the general community. So I'd like some comment on that.
Well, I'd like to address a couple things.
Repeat the question so we
Okay,
can get
go
a
ahead.
video. What are the agencies and people doing to help homeowners make their house more fire safe in the event they can't get out?
And where we'd rather stay, because it's never, see, the news, and I understand that risk management has a lot to do with this. That they, you know, we hear the stories about people burning up, and that's true, but it's not true generally. And in 2000, I'm just talking about the 2007 experience, is that, you know, Ramona was told to evacuate all at once, and we heard about the roads being full. And then after that, there wasn't too much of a problem except no water. Now there was a line down 67 of people who wanted to get back to their homes, to at least take care of their animals, and they weren't trusted to come back because we were afraid you're going to drink the bad water or what? I mean,
I think the next fire will be different, but what do we do to make our homes safer? If you can't get out, the road's closed, whatever reason, something happens, where's the best resource? That sort of question, what we can help them?
Well, we learned a lot with the last fire, obviously, and there were mistakes made, there's no question. I don't recall that we ever evacuated a town of 40,000 people before, so we learned a lot about that, and there's no question a lot's going to be different. But I can tell you that when, I mentioned it before, when we say that it's time to evacuate, we're not trying to get you out of the way. We're trying to let you know that your life is in danger. If you stay, you could lose your life. And that's how we protect life. And so we are actually trying to protect you. When we tell you to evacuate, it's because we're trying to protect you. Because if you stay in place, you could lose your life. Certainly your property. But we've learned a lot over the last fire, and I know CAL FIRE and I, we talk about this all the time, because you can't evacuate all at once, right? So we have some new programs. Our new call system, we can do it at a quadrant at a time. We talk about when are we really going to do that. I would say if that ever were to happen again, we'd certainly call for it a lot earlier, right? If we had the opportunity. Unfortunately, sometimes these come in the middle of the night at blazing speed. So no one's trying to keep anybody out. I can tell you, I'm certainly not. The sheriff certainly is not. We're just trying to let you know that your life's in danger. That's what we're here to do. I can't protect you or your house, but I can let you know you better do something yourself, whether you're going to leave or you're going to decide to stay. But we're just trying to help everybody know that when it comes, you need to consider yourself and the safety of your family.
Does that satisfy your question?
No.
Kind of a complex
I didn't
question.
answer the question.
Very complex. Yes, ma'am.
Somebody mentioned the people that have water tanks and the, you know, the wells and the pumps that
Yeah,
run on
what do you do
electricity.
if you have a well, you're not in city water, correct, and you have one of those big 5,000 or 10,000 gallon tanks? How does a fire department approach a home that has that? Is that the question?
Well, that plus we can't put up.
She's asking like the other lady, how do you get electric when it's off, but you have a well? Generators. Good. That's the exact answer. But you don't just hook up a generator. You don't just hook up a generator to your well and everybody's happy as pie. There's specific steps, and I know SDG and he's not here tonight, but there's specific steps that have to be taken place. And there's a handout back there. You have to ensure the safety of the electrical workers, firefighters, and all that. If you decide to hook up a generator on your own, you want to ensure that you have at minimum what's called a transfer switch. When the lines are down or a fire says, hey, he calls SDG&E fire coordinator, shut down power in this area. We got a fire coming through, blah, blah, blah. Okay, they shut off the power. If a homeowner takes and hooks up a generator on his own improperly, energizes his well or electrical system to his house, he may think everything's hunky-dory. But if you have a backfeed through those power lines, fire guys think power shut down, all of a sudden the law enforcement and fire's lives are in danger because the power's been backfed. So basically what I'm saying is, like the answer was put up a generator, but there's specific ways to do that. You should hire a certified electrical contractor. They will ensure that the proper electrical code is met. A transfer switch is put in, which means you flip the switch, it disconnects from the main grid and locates the power to your well like that. But you should also always do that with safety as first and go through an electrical contractor.
We haven't heard from the Forest Service yet. What do you do with homes that have those big galvanized tanks out front? How do you utilize those?
Well, most of them are, when the power's out, if any homeowner has any hills or elevation in their yard, that's typically where they put their tanks. So then it's gravity fed. It's a lot slower to fill off of, of course. But most of the time, I think there's requirements that the county has for the pipe size or whatever coming out, so we can graft off them or get water out of them. The metal ones work a lot better because they take a lot more heat. Most people go with the cheaper, I think they are cheaper, the green plastic or plastic poly ones. Well, those melt real fast, so all your water's lost. And then most everybody goes with plastic pipe, and if you don't put it in the ground, it melts also. So that's another thing you have to do, of course, in the wintertime, it freezes. So, you know, when we do have the winter. But, so it's always there, and that's what we have to do. You know, we do what we call pre-suppression stuff, where we actually go out, find out where these houses are, where the water sources are, how much water is available, how we can get to it. And most of the homeowners that have been through fires in the rural areas, they have all that set up. They've learned the same way too. And you didn't know that during that. You can talk to people who stayed there and wish they had left. So it's not that simple. It's not cut and dry. Simple as that.